Dr. Schram, as you know, a lot of MCED research involves modeling. Let's talk about some of the modeling studies that demonstrate the various potential benefits of MCEDs.
So let me discuss two reports from ASCO, both using the American Cancer Society Cancer Prevention Study 3, CPS3 cohort. This was a data set from ASCO that demonstrated that this particular MCED was able to pick up a cancer signal as early as 3 years prior to the cancer's clinical emergence. So if you look at the TPR, which is the test positive rate, at 3 years it was 2.3%, at 2 years it was 6%, and at 1 year it was 15%. So that's a study that shows that this platform can detect things as early as 3 years prior to the clinical emergence of the cancer. Another study using the same CPS3 data provided a good benchmark for windows of early detection for different cancers. The author also suggested that long-term survival was better than the SEER data, although I would caution everyone using SEER data for survival comparisons because SEER data is obviously retrospective and often 4 or 5 years behind. And as we know, treatments in the last 5 to 10 years have really improved. So I think it's using survival in this study is perhaps going a bit too far, but it does validate the use of this platform for improving detection window and possibly improving survival in the future.
Well, this is very interesting and very exciting data that has come from these two abstracts. I know there was a really interesting study reported from the National Lung Screening Trial. Do you mind talking a little bit more about that one?
I'd love to. This is a great poster by Chang et al. Presented at ASCO in Chicago this year. The NLST, which is the National Lung Screening Trial, was a prospective screening trial that changed the standard of care in the United States. This was a study that looked at over 53,000 patients, high risk for cancer, lung cancer specifically, ages 55 to 75, 30 pack year history of smoking. The question was, does helical low-dose CT improve survival? And the answer that was arrived at was, yes, it does. But what is not often reported is that those lung cancers that were found represented only 1/3 of the cancers that were detected by screening with imaging, which tells us that there is a great need for a single test that doesn't just look for one cancer, but looks for many cancers. Because once we start looking, we're finding a lot of other types of cancers. These can go missed if we don't have a single cancer screening test. And this illustrates the need for that.
Dr. Schram, what would you say is the main take-home points for our primary care provider listeners from this chapter?
I think what I would say is that with new technology, any new technology, things are moving quickly and improvements are made sometimes incrementally and sometimes in large steps. We've had some huge steps in the last 3 years. 10 years ago, people were really looking at circulating tumor cells. Now we're looking at cell-free DNA, and then now we're looking at methylation of that cell-free DNA. I think it's important to wait for society guidelines to make broad brush recommendations, but I think we need to be open to becoming a little bit early adopters and not be late adopters when it comes to new technology.